A good afternoon and welcome to Live at the Watering Hole this afternoon, where we start out at Lintore Lodge in the Great Rift Valley with our favorite troop of baboons. And what a way to start this afternoon. These baboons are always up to the funniest antics. And the even funnier thing about that situation is, if I'm not mistaken, that looked like two males. And that one looks a little confused. Now, my name is Jaapie Potgieter and I am your host this afternoon, and I'm very, very excited to see what's happening around the watering holes this afternoon. As always, this is the best time of the day, in my opinion, for watching the antics of animals, especially mostly the animals that are more active during the day, the herbivores. The middle of the day is usually a time of the day that most of the predators that tend to move or be more active during the night actually have a rest in the heat of the day to conserve their energy. And of course, the other animals know that very, very well, and they take advantage of that. And then you have other animals, like this troop of baboons, that just likes to hang out near a great spot. Now, I'd like to remind our viewers that you can engage with us. This afternoon, we are live and interactive. You can see any of the social media platforms there at the bottom left of the screen. And you can send through comments, questions, anything you'd like to talk about. As always, your questions is also part of the way that I learn. And there is some very, very interesting questions that come about that ensure some very interesting discussion topics happening throughout the show. But now I can see, it looks like there's a large male baboon chasing a female there. It looks like he's trying to win some favor, doing a bit of grooming. And here's a female that's in heat. And she's also being followed by a big male baboon. And it looks like it's a busy afternoon here at Lintore. You can see the little one that just fell off the tree there. Lots of baby baboons there in the back. And I'd say from their relaxed behavior around this watering hole, it seems like this troop is quite well looked after, with a combination of large male baboons on the lookout and for the protection, and then of course with the groups of females that have their little creche with the younger baboons. What's also interesting is the baboons playing around the termite mound there. It looks like there's some nice shade. There's a little bit of a breeze going through, I can see. And termite mounds are always a good spot for little baboons and critters to hang out during the middle of the day. Interesting thing about the termite mounds is they keep the heat well during the cold winter mornings and evenings, and they're also quite nice and cool during the middle of the day on a hot day. One of the best things about a baboon troop is usually the fact that there's so much happening. Even though they all work together to ensure the safety of the group, they also do tend to have their own agendas. Oops. I think we might have lost our signal that side, but that's okay. Never to complain about elephants, that's for sure. And here we are at Oldonyo with some very hot elephants, it seems, trying to get a bit of cool water. It looks like it's a nice hot day. I don't see a cloud in the sky. Even though there's a slight breeze, it looks like these elephants are trying to ensure that they are cool enough. And some zebra drinking. What a beautiful scene here. Look at the spectacular elephant bull. Just checking out the surrounding area around the watering hole, probably inspecting who was nearby while waiting for his travel companions to finish. And there we go, a dust bath. Usually something that follows after the elephants have wetted themselves around the water. Well, I just heard we got an interesting scene at Olifants where there's two hippos mating, so I think we're gonna leave these elephants for now. We'll come back to them later and go and see what's happening there. Now, this is quite interesting. Let's see. And usually with these type of things it is a bit of a waiting game. Oh, that was quite an interesting bit of behavior. That hippo seemed quite exciting. Now, hippos mating is not an often seen thing, and whether that is the case of what we're watching here. Let's see that. There's quite a determined movement in the space. I saw there was another hippo that approached. Now, often around mating times with hippos you find that there are a bit of aggression between males, between younger ones, but looking at these hippos, to me it seems like they might be quite young, so there might just be a bit of fooling around here. Maybe they are dealing with some hormones. Nevertheless, always interesting to watch. Because if I have a look there, it seems like there's a much younger hippo, the one that's still above the water now. So maybe it might also just be a young female trying to keep a distance with a young male that's probably irritating around the little one. But as I was saying, hippos are animals that are not often seen mating. It's quite fortunate if you do get to see them mate, especially in the wild. But one thing that they do, there's an Egyptian goose there in the background. Always a present customer around the water. But with hippos mating, it generally happens in the water, which is unique for large mammals, not something that any of the other large mammals actually do. It's extremely rare to see them mate out on the land, but then again you can't say definite with animals. And there's probably a lot of behaviors that we miss outside. Hippos tend to spend, especially in regions like South Africa, where they are confined to the larger water streams or rivers and man-made dams. We tend to see hippos being way more active at night time. In general, they are way more active in night time. But yeah, that's something that's not too often seen. And also another interesting about hippos, like it's not the young hippos generally around, they stay with their mothers. They have quite a strong bond with their mothers. They stay with their mothers for numbers of years, and generally the sexual maturity or the age of sexual maturity is usually only for females a little bit earlier, for males around 6, 7, 8. And of course they also have strong hierarchies that are determined by males fighting for right to access to mate with females. So generally speaking, young female hippos only mate from a little bit later. And then they have about 2 years interval between mating sessions, which is also quite interesting. So we got a question by George. Our first question this afternoon is asking, what diseases are hippo prone to? George, that's a very good question. I think there is a number of diseases, and depending on the area, the individual hippo, the genetic pool, it can vary quite a lot. But what I do know, one thing about hippos, they do often get quite a bit of cuts inflicted from fighting, and because of that you tend to find that they look like they might get infections quite easily, but they have a very thick skin, and that skin is also protected by a layer of oil that helps them, and that oil contains antibodies that helps protect the animals from small scratches or cuts. So diseases, there are a number of diseases that hippos can potentially get. But yeah, I think I'll have to get back to you on that one. I think for now, while these hippos are off, what a beautiful scene here at the Olifants River, let's head back over to Old Donyo and check in with the elephants again. Aha! Almost looked like a little standoff between a male zebra and a young elephant. Looks like the other elephant has moved off. The big tusker. This is quite interesting. This younger elephant seems a little bit reluctant to let the zebra drink. Now this is always interesting to watch, because when animals approach, most animals, they know they can probably outrun or outmaneuver a large elephant, but around a watering hole anything can happen. Elephant or any animal don't generally like to drop their guard, which they do to an extent. They go down and have a drink, they lower their head, and then young elephants can be quite bothersome around watering holes, especially to other animals. So let's see. The zebra looks a little thirsty. When we were here earlier, there were some elephants and they didn't seem to mind the zebras drinking. So that very much depends on the elephants, the particular elephants, the individuals. And we often see some interaction between the individual elephants around the water, but sometimes we tend to find that if they are either put in their place by a larger animal or another animal which are not interested, then they take that curiosity and interest and take it out on any other approaching animal that might be near the watering hole. But you can see there's still quite a bit of grass here, so the zebras in the background, they almost seem to be waiting. They don't seem to be feeding. Maybe they're waiting for this male to finish off. An interesting thing about, oh, here we go. Let's see what that elephant does. But what we find is with zebras, generally the large male who has a harem of females and young ones, he will generally leave an area last or move behind the rest of the herd. Yeah, so it seems like now the elephant is allowing it to drink. Maybe he's come over himself. Joey is asking, are elephants the most water dependent mammal? Oh, Joey, that's a difficult question to answer. I would think that the hippo is probably more water dependent. Purely from the fact that it is a semi-aquatic animal, but I think it's very difficult to answer that question straight up, and I think it would also depend on the type of animal and the area that they are found in. I mean, there's also marine mammals like whales and dolphins who live within aquatic environments. In terms of water requirements to drink, elephants are definitely up there for a land mammal. They certainly do require a lot of moisture in a day, especially on a hot day. And that's why we see them hang around the watering hole here at Aldonio for such lengthy periods on occasion. So yeah, I'd say water dependent, probably not. But water requirements from the savanna mammals, yes, it's very high. I think hippos are probably more water dependent, but water requirements, yeah. Now this is a determined zebra. Certainly. Shina RD is saying hello to everybody at Wild Earth. Hello to you too, Shina. Thanks for joining us again this afternoon. Good to hear that you are watching. I hope you will enjoy this afternoon. Wendy H is saying hello to Wild Earth and saying it's a beautiful 26-degree day in PE and it looks lovely at Aldonio, but a bit dry. that is indeed sounds like a very, very nice day, Wendy. I hope that you do enjoy this beautiful day there in PE. It's a little bit cold here in Joburg where I am today. I guess it could be colder. The last few days have been a little bit warmer than what it has been, and after the winter solstice I am extremely happy to know that we are starting to move back towards the summertime, which is my favorite time in the northeastern part of South Africa, that's for sure. We have an interesting question here from Spaz asking how antibodies of hippos protect them from certain diseases found in water. Now, this question certainly reminds me, and I want to revert back to George's question from earlier, what diseases are hippos prone to? Now, George, in short, like, diseases can be quite a complex thing, and I'm certainly no expert in it, but I do know one of the big things for hippos is anthrax is a big issue with hippos in certain areas, and because of that they often also tend to affect the larger areas through predators feeding on them. Anthrax can be dormant within the soil and near water for a very, very long time, and during the right conditions they do surface, so they are some of the population of animals that often gets affected by it. And droughts especially, they crowd, the animals easily ingest the spores. They crowd in stagnant water. So yeah. So anthrax is also a devastating disease. It can kill quite a few animals. Hippos are very prone to parasites, blood, liver parasites, roundworms, and due to that some secondary infections. While we're talking about hippos, and I think I'll continue with this question, but let's head over to the Mara River, where we've actually got some hippos, and then we can discuss them more in depth. Here we go. What a beautiful raft of hippos. Just look at them glistening in the sun. Part of the reason of why they have that shiny appearance in the sun, and the pink parts like this one coming in from the bank. We'll discuss that in a moment, but to get back to Spaziankov and George's question. So some of the other diseases and things that affect hippos or their health. Some general stuff is they often have dental and jaw issues that can happen from animals fighting. It can be birth defects. There can be various reasons for that. You can see all the clearly visible scars on these animals. Now, most of those scars are often created in some cases by predators when they're out on the land, but they are often from other hippos. Hippos fighting with each other, hippos attacking each other. That's why they're usually towards the back end or the sides of the animal. Now, due to that punctures the skin. They've got massive tusks, the big males especially, and they are extremely sharp, and they constantly get kept sharp. So by opening and closing their mouths, as the upper and the lower tusks grind on each other, they create these very, very sharp edges. Now, due to that, hippos can be quite damaging to each other. those cuts are often prone to get infected. Bacterial infections.
Bada bang, bada boomsh. Oh, she's going to run after impalers. She's running after impalers. All right, everybody, that is our cue. One only wonders what they got up to last night. Lion cubs this morning. It's all happening, eh? These females have got their paws full, and you can just see.
Hello, good morning.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Being a hippo is not an easy life. It's a tough life. Socially especially. But yeah. So one of the protections that hippos have against infections and diseases is the antibacterial secretions. The secretion also reflects sunlight and acts as a UV barrier. Ooh, something's just... prompted them to get up and move. Let's see. Looks like there is quite a clear pathway coming down on that bank, so not sure, it might be another animal, but it's quite a significant movement from the group up on the bank. Not sure what happened there, but interesting to see nonetheless. But I think while these hippos are trying to resettle in their snooze, let's head over back to Olifants, where we have a very interesting little reptile. Aha. By the looks of it, it looks like a three-striped rainbow skink. Although I can only see two stripes, but it looks like one's running down the middle of the head. In which case there would be another one on the other flank that I'm just not seeing currently. You can see the clear blue tail. And what a beautiful little lizard. You can hear the Egyptian goose. Now, this little skink is usually quite difficult to spot and track down like this. You can see it's sitting out on a rock, it's basking. Looks like a nice cozy spot. And that is what skinks often do this time of the day, is they utilize whatever little heat is there, as they are a reptile and therefore very much reliant on their environmental conditions for regulating their body temperature, especially in winter time. And we tend to get to see these little ones come out a little bit later in the day and just relax, but still very vigilant. You can see his eyes seem half open, but he is very much aware of his surroundings for even a potential meal that might pop up here. And it looks like a nice rough piece of rock there. You can see what looks like a raisin bush in the background. Yeah, I can see some flies moving on him, tiny little flies, or ants actually, so he doesn't seem too interested. But I think while we're here, let's leave the skink. Let's head over to Kenya, where we have a potential predator of an animal like a skink. And what do we have here? Ah, an eagle. Certainly something that could eat a skink, although this looks like quite a large eagle. Now I think a skink would be a little bit of a tough meal for this guy. But one thing in common with the skink is this is often the time of the day that we tend to see raptors come down to the water's edge. And this is quite a welcome surprise. By the looks of it, it looks like a tawny eagle. That is quite spectacular. Just casually walking. You can see the tracks there of large mammals that's come down to have a drink in the mud on the edge. Look at this bird, it's just trying to find some shade there. And also probably looking for some easy meals on the ground. That's very interesting to see. It's not often that you get to see a large raptor, especially like a tawny eagle, sitting on the ground and looking for things to hunt on the ground. That is extremely interesting. I can't say I've ever seen that. Maybe he's just looking for some shade. But that is most unusual. Unless there's something in there that might have attracted these attention. These birds are known to scavenge. And you never know, under a thick bush like that, you often find that there might be old parts of carcasses getting dragged in there by predators or something moving in there. Now, whatever the reason, it's just very uncommon. It goes to show they are quite curious and quite resourceful because of that. Joey is asking, could that be his nest? Joey, I highly doubt that. With tawny eagles, number one, this one still looks like a younger one, judging from the color of the head. But also with most of these large birds, they tend to nest right at the top of the trees. That's where they've got a great view of surrounding areas. They know that the chicks will be safe, and they need a large platform. And something confined like this space here, it would be very difficult for a large bird of prey to easily enter. And also they'll be very much prone to predators here. Now it looks like there's a lot of flying insects around, and you can see this bird is obviously, with its keen eyesight, it's picking up on some of them. So maybe it's just checking. I know that also thick bushes like this is often a good spot for smaller birds to nest. So potentially he's looking for something, chicks that might have dropped, or potential nests. I think even small eggs wouldn't be beneath this bird. Shina is saying, what a beautiful raptor. Indeed, Shina, it is. It is certainly one of my favorite ones to watch. And they are a very, very smart bird, and they tend to get themselves into interesting situations often. You can hear all the other little birds moving around here. You can see them coming across the screen at high speed every now and again, and that's what he's watching. Now what's interesting with young birds, especially having to be resourceful, they tend to just watch, but of course they will take a chance, I'm sure, if it presents itself. Animal Lover is saying, fingers crossed for a live hunt. Animal Lover, that would be incredible. And I wouldn't put it beneath this bird. Maybe that was part of the plan. Although the other little birds also have keen eyesight, and they are probably also quite aware of his presence. But that would be incredible to see. And tawny eagles do tend to go after anything, really. Anything that they can get their talons on. I've seen them with small reptiles. I've seen them with small birds. Have a look at all those birds. Maybe that's why it's there. All those little birds, likely quillias, sitting on the branches of the tree above. So there's likely to be something there to scavenge, or an opportunity that might arise. But it looks like this bird might just be sitting, enjoying the shade there for now. Was hoping for some action, but who knows, maybe at the later stage. I think while it's enjoying its shady spot there, let's head over to Zimbabwe. Where we have another amazing bird. Well, two another amazing birds. We have a large ostrich that seems to be picking up some leftovers, or probably insects moving in the short grass. And then we also have a, right just to the right of the ostrich's foot on the ground, we've got a small little black bird, and if I'm not mistaken is a fork-tailed drongo, capitalizing on the ostrich. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the ostrich are after. It might be some insects rummaging around in the short grass there, but it also looks like there's quite a bit of elephant dung around, and potentially there might be some leftover seeds or something. What a beautiful sight. Quite a relaxed ostrich, just lifting its head every now and again to look around. Hop. Oopsie, it seems like we lost our feed there in Zimbabwe, but never mind. We are back at Oldonyo, where we have some good elephant action starting. Now this is the thing, the hotter it gets, the more likely one is to find elephants near a watering hole. And as we know, Oldonyo is very busy this time of the day. Look at this. Elephant right in the middle of the pool. He doesn't seem too bothered by all the others cornering around the area where the water inlet is. Of course, very smart. They all know this watering hole quite well, and they know that the water comes in from there, so they take their times. But now that we are back here at Oldonyo, I've had some interesting questions earlier that came through from some of our viewers about elephants. Two very interesting animals, fascinating animals. But there was a question from George asking if there's any new studies on why elephants are so intelligent and why their memories last so long. So George, that's an interesting question. It actually comes back to a question I had last week regarding elephant intelligence. And it is quite remarkable, elephant intelligence. They are much more intelligent than other pachyderms. They are higher mammals. They have very complex social structures, and they tend to be way more intelligent, or regarded as way more intelligent than the other pachyderms. Part of this reason is they have a large amount of brain development happening after the little ones get born, due to the integration into complex systems, the ability to learn and grasp the use of their trunk. That all contributes to them. Now, an elephant's brain, and interestingly enough, from what I've read, it looks like the Asian elephant actually have a slightly larger brain than the African elephant, but regardless of that, they are the mammal with the largest comparative brain size. And from a young animal getting born to adulthood, that brain can increase about 3 times in size, which is a massive amount. A lot of that is dedicated to neural movement, especially the feedback between the trunk and the brain, which is a massive part, and that needs a huge amount of brain activity to be able to control such a complex muscle as the trunk. With 40 to 50,000 muscles in a trunk, you can imagine all that neural connections, and that certainly requires a lot of brain power. Now, the other thing also with elephants is, due to that, the complex neural connections, they also tend to have a very large capacity for memories, especially storing memories regarding other animals and geographical information. Elephants are extremely resourceful, and due to the fact that they're so large and they roam over such large areas in various different habitats, they need to essentially form a map of their surrounding areas to make sure that they can navigate their ways properly. Once drought hits, or once there is more difficult conditions about. And for that, an elephant needs a massive memory. So that certainly attributes also to part of the intelligence. Now, another thing with elephants that make their brain such a unique thing is that elephants they learn from when they're young. They keep on learning. They practically never stop learning, because they are such complex animals. They watch their parents. They have to learn how to use their trunk. They have to learn what to eat, what they can't eat. So it is an extremely, their general life, the general conditions that elephants find themselves in, is extremely difficult to rely purely on instinct, like most other mammals does. And for instance, hippo and rhino, even though they can have complexity within their social structures, they tend to be more instinctual than the learned behavior that elephants heavily rely on. So that is in part why they are so intelligent, and why they have such a long-term, or such a great memory. They have the need for a great memory. But new studies, George, there are constantly new studies. I can't think particularly of any that's come out recently. I know the major ones in the last little while is mostly due to the use of language within elephants and communication, and the fact that they do call each other by names. That's some of the more significant studies that's recently, or in the last couple of years. But with elephants, there's always a lot of research happening, and it's interesting that it's one of the animals that we spend so much attention on, and we still understand very little actually. They still have their mystery to them, which is why we love them. You just have a look at them standing around, gazing in the direction, but there's certainly something happening here. There's probably other elephants approaching. There we go. You can generally see when they stop, they start swaying around like that, either lifting their foot or resting their trunk. That's generally a sign that this animal is contemplating something. Well, it might be that this young elephant coming in, either there was a relatable incident that happened earlier, or it is a animal that's new in the area. Hence they pay careful attention to each other. But before we head over to Kenya for some baboons, Petrollerose 23 is saying these 4 bulls are always at this watering hole. Yes, indeed they are. But I think let's leave them for now. They might be here a little bit later. Let's head over to the baboon troop. We've got a lot of little birds, a marabou stork, and a very thirsty baboon troop. And it looks like there's even 1 or 2 baboons that got a bit deep in the water there on the right. That is quite funny. And just have a look. Always those sitting out, enjoying themselves. Look at the marabou just literally taking on the role of a, well, I guess it's a stork. With clearly hunting for probably small fish. Or anything really, frogs, whatever it can catch. The baboons seem quite relaxed. There's a lot of them. And look how excited the little ones are to come down to the water. And look at the little one here sitting on his mom's back while she's having a drink.
The Masai Mara in February 2027 with your favorite Wild Earth guides. This is an extraordinary safari opportunity. You'll stay at the exclusive Kobe Mara, a private villa in the action-packed Northern Mara. Your hosts for this fun-filled safari are David Gigi Gitu, Cedric Dold, and me, James Henry. Alright then, let me show you what you're missing. Our archive allows you to delve into the past, be it yesterday or many years ago. You can visit characters who've left us.
Doesn't ever get old.
This is, of course, the Little Prince, Hosanna, guides who've moved on to other things.
Tingana's walking right in front of my vehicle.
These guys are the sausage tree pride.
Classic stories and wonderful moments. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together. Would you like to know what an elephant's favourite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. The Fortunas over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature. The Explorer Chat is a magnificent way to make new friends who share your interest in nature. As an explorer, you'll also get your very own dashboard and personalized profile, plus the ability to save and share your favorite wildlife incidents with our brand new Safari Screenshots feature. Share sightings, swap stories, and experience nature together with people who feel the same pull to the wild as you do. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together. We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Them around the water, then they might spend a bit of time, which I hope, but it seems like it's quite hot, so for now they're not overly active, except for the little ones. And I always find it interesting that the little ones keep their position on the mom's back. You can see that little one there near the marabou is just sitting right on his mom's back, and whoop, looks like it got a bit of a fright from a flock of birds. But this is a decent sized troop, this. Can't even see the whole extent of it, but I can see a number of large male baboons, so I'm assuming any troop with such adequate protection must be quite prosperous and big. And just have a look at them. Their careful approach when they get to the water's edge. And it's interesting to watch. They just bring their nose down and they hardly touch the water. But these baboons look like they're going to settle in here for a while, and they are quite relaxed at this point. So I heard we might have some zebra that look like they want to cross the Mara River at the main crossing, so I think let's head over there. Let's see if we might get lucky to see a crossing. Oh, some eland, some zebra. This could be good. Now they're coming in. And you can see, and these animals look determined and nervous. But this will be great if we get to have some luck here. You can see, look at those eland, a little bit hesitant there. Well, it looks like a decent group of zebra. Only a few eland. But yeah, interesting that the there's some good numbers of zebra coming in now. If they do cross, this will be incredible to see here at the main crossing. I know there's lots of crocs here. Some hippos here as well. Is that the end of the group there? Oof, it's a large group. There must be a few hundred here, would be my guess. And it seems like only the 4 or 5 eland. Well, I just heard from our zoomies that they are heading in the direction of the river, so I really hope that we will get to see it. Interesting to see them. They're moving through the open space as they approach. But they're moving along the edge of a denser area. but they are certainly coming towards the river, and with a little bit of patience and luck we might get to see some good action this afternoon. George is asking an interesting question in the meantime. Oh, well, okay, yeah, now we get the eland speeding up. Now this is often something that happens once they approach their crossing point. They know that things might be a little bit busy, and it's also something that these animals become quite frantic about. They do want to get it over. They do want to get through to the other side. They know that there's risk involved, and these are things that can determine an animal's state. There was a little hop by that eland. That's quite cool to see. Mayesh is saying good day to everybody, and that this is an amazing sighting, and hope that they are all successful to reach the other side. But to get back to George's question, how does the migration work on a biological level for animals and on an environmental level for the Mara Serengeti ecosystem? Good question, George. I guess that's a question we can delve into, and there's probably a lot that can be said about it. I think even though it is a well-known, well, there's some hesitant zebra and eland. This is also something that happens. The moment might just be too big, especially if it's led by eland. They're not the most brazen of animals. So let's see. Maybe the zebra might prompt, but there is often a little bit of a wait time preparing themselves mentally. You can see they're staring in the direction. But so the Great Migration is generally, it is a very large number, a massive biomass consisting of multiple animal species that form very large herds, and the predominant species associated with this migration, of course, is the blue wildebeest, or an East African variant, and they move up from Tanzania into Kenya for this migration. And what they do is, as soon as the rain starts falling, they move, and then they go up, and this is to follow better grazing and resources available, because the areas that they were in up until that point, their resources have dwindled, and the massive numbers have made it to the point where they need to move, otherwise they'll die. There's also other animals. There's zebras, large groups of zebras as we're seeing, and other animals that join in. But the largest two species that consist, or that makes most of the large amount of animals migrating, is the wildebeest and the zebra. Now, generally speaking, they start in Tanzania, and they usually start after the birthing season, which is generally January to March, birthing or calving season for the wildebeest. And then once the drier period starts and the rain starts falling further north in the Masai Mara, then you have them starting to move in April through to June. And they move all the way up from the Serengeti to the Masai Mara, but generally speaking, July to October, that's when you see most of the big crossings happening. and especially with the wildebeest, and that's when they cross the Mara River, and then they're in Kenya. Now, of course, with a massive amount of animals moving like this, it triggers every other part of the ecosystem, of course. It's a movement of hooves. It's a massive amount of biomaterial that gets moved into the soil. All these animals, where they stop and feed, they also drop their dung. That adds to the nutrient cycling of an area. Of course, predators get into action on every part. It affects certain areas where they have left. Those predators might have to struggle a little bit more for food and resources, but the areas around the Mara River especially, predators are in abundance this time of the year, and this is obviously a massive time for them to capitalize. Take the crocodiles, for example. In some estimates, some of the larger crocs, it's reckoned to be the only time of the year that they really have large meals. So the predators in this area will be supplied with a massive amount of potential food for the next little while. That also includes large birds of prey, vultures that come that help with the cleanup. And have a look. So one eland has moved a little bit forward, trying to analyze and consider its approach. But let's see, are they going to make it all the way there this afternoon? Are we going to be lucky enough to see a crossing? Joey is asking, why do they cross even though they know there are crocs in danger? Joey, that is their biological systems driving them. The need to cross is greater than the need to fear the danger. They know if they stick together, that's part of the reason why they cross in groups. They know if they stick together and move as one, then there's a much less chance of them becoming a meal to the crocs. They also choose their sites to cross. They like to go areas that's rocky, a little bit more difficult to move for the large crocs. But they need to get across. They need to be able to get to a point where they can get to the good resources. Spassi Ankov is asking, what's the biggest crossing of zebras and wildebeest I've seen? Spaz, I have not had the privilege of seeing it in real life myself. I've only been able to watch it through the cameras, and to be honest, I've got no clue. I think I've seen some pretty large crossings. I wouldn't know numbers at all. I think this is a pretty decent one, this one. Like the crossings come and go. But I have to say, when it's the very large crossings, often you see the predators sometimes they kind of move off to the sides, and you just witness this massive mass of hooved animals crossing the water. That's pretty impressive to see. But I do enjoy some of the smaller crossings as well. Provides the predators with a little bit more chances. Catherine U2R is saying, I would take the easy way over. Catherine, I think that's what they all are thinking, or at least they're hoping that they're taking the easy way. Although, in the franticness of the moment, I guess once that first one decides to cross that barrier, then the rest just follow. They kind of follow blindly in the hopes of surviving. They know if they all move, at least that some of them should survive. But it seems like the animals have settled for now. There's no massive pressing need for them to do it immediately, it seems like. So I think we'll ask the zoomies to keep an eye out. If something amazing happens, we might come back here. But I think for now, while they are just considering their options, we'll leave them and we'll head over to Jabulani to see what we have there this afternoon. Aha! We have some buffalo. Well, this is quite nice to see. Not a very big herd, but in this part, in southern Africa, we do tend to find smaller groups of buffalo as well. And you can see these guys are quite relaxed, even laying with their backside towards the water and taking a much needed rest. There's some coming from behind out of the thick bush. You can see it's still very nice and green here at Jabulani, and there's a massive amount of water still, which is certainly very much welcomed by animals like these buffalo. Now, buffalo is quite an interesting one. We can see in the background, just to point it out to our viewers, there's some cloud build-up there behind a mountain range. Just the top is visible. That's the famous Drakensberg Mountains in South Africa, our largest mountain range. But what a beautiful sight. You can hear some green bulls shouting. It's nice and lush here around the water, and these buffalo are just taking a well-earned break. You can see some of them are just, the tails are going up and down, of course, swatting some flies. It looks like it's nice and warm there, although a bit of cloud cover here and there. But they're just chewing the cud, and they've probably been feeding in and around this area for most of the morning. Looks like there's a couple of bulls amongst them, some larger bulls. But what better spot than a nice soft spot on a sandy bank near the water's edge. You can see what looks like one or two young ones, so this is technically a small breeding herd. Yeah, now I can see there is a lot of cows. There's some very big bulls here in between. You can see this old bull right next to the water's edge. He's got some bare patches on his body, on his face, some years of scratching. Well, those are the guys that mean business, and they do very well to protect a group like this. Of course, in a situation like this with a thick bush surrounding them, there is a certain amount of vulnerability from predators like lions, for instance, which is their main predator, especially this part of South Africa. The lion prides in this region are well known for hunting buffalo. But it certainly doesn't come easy though. And judging from some of the older buffalo in this group, I'm sure these buffalo are more than easy enough to take a breather right here on the water's edge. I don't think they fear any other potential predators like the crocodile from the water side. You can see they're all facing away. Now I think this is twofold. It's time to rest, chew their cud, and of course buffalo being a ruminant, they need to take some time out during the day to rest and re-chew their food, which is an important part of their digestive process. But at the same time, they also
Some tours are watched, others are lived. This is England's tour of South Africa, December to January, cricket at its most iconic. And when the final ball is bowled, your journey is only just beginning. Travel into the wild, all-inclusive, seamless, unforgettable. Cricket and Safari by Wild Earth Travel. This isn't just a tour, it's South Africa, done properly.
We are following the story of 32 rhinos that are making their way to their new home at Mabula Private Game Reserve.
The Explorer Chat is a magnificent way to make new friends who share your interest in nature. As an explorer, you'll also get your very own dashboard and personalized profile, plus the ability to save and share your favorite wildlife incidents with our brand new Safari Screenshots feature. Share sightings, swap stories, and experience nature together with people who feel the same pull to the wild as you do. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together. We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
She's been through it, that's for sure. She knows the deal. I was wondering where the ox pickers were. I see now there's one or two around, but I didn't see them earlier. That's another thing. This also, when the buffaloes are laying down like this, it's also the perfect time for the ox pickers to do their job and get into the harder to reach spots while the animal is moving vigorously. But to complete Spaz's question, he was asking if buffaloes are good swimmers. Yes, Spaz, indeed they are. They are surprisingly good for a bovine-like animal. in fact, a little while ago, I saw a very interesting video. But I've had the privilege of seeing buffalo, especially the bulls, swimming across the channels, the deeper channels in Chobe National Park in Botswana, which is quite special to see. And they tend to be quite fond of water. They spend a lot of time, especially the older bulls, and wherever they can, they spend time near water if there's good food and everything else available. But I saw a video recently of a buffalo swimming a vast distance through a deep channel. I'm not sure exactly where it was. And then, surprisingly, towards the end of the video, this buffalo comes up and there is a very big crocodile attached to its back foot. And what makes it even more incredible is this croc obviously tried to pull the buffalo under, and this buffalo managed to have its head above the water just all the way over a great distance, and eventually when it reached the bank, it struggled to get out, but it even managed to loosen itself from the croc's grip and it came free. I'm not sure if any of our other viewers saw that video, but it was an incredible video filmed from one of the guiding boats on the river. But yeah, so I think it doesn't like, I wouldn't be able to do that swimming across a channel with a crocodile on my foot. So yeah, even though they don't look like it, they are surprisingly good swimmers and very, very fond of water. Well, from buffalo relaxing in the sun to elephants at Tembe, I think let's head over to Tembe to see what the elephant's up to. And that's an elephant bull just relaxing and relieving himself on the edge of the watering hole at Tembe. And by the wet trunk, it looks like he's in wet front feet. He's probably just had a good drink from this watering hole. What a beautiful spot it is here at Tembe. Tembe also, this area has also had a lot of rain this year, and it's always very busy with elephants regardless of the time of the year. The elephant bulls at Tembe is always special to watch. And let's see, where's this guy going? I've got a little bit of a pathway leading around the watering hole here from the water to different drinking spots, and then they often tend to move around to the spots where they go and dust themselves. But Tembe being situated in northern parts of the KwaZulu-Natal province of South Africa, it tends to get very humid in these parts. So animals, especially elephants, come down regularly in the middle of the day to come and have a drink. And I can see looks like it's been very busy here. There's some impala, another elephant. Judging by how those dust bowls and the mud pools have been used, it looks like there's been a lot of activity around here. And let's see, it looks like another amazing elephant just having a drink. Joey is asking if an elephant is in really deep water, does it sink or float? Joey, elephants are surprisingly good swimmers. They actually have a history of an aquatic history, and from their morphology it's quite clear that they evolved from aquatic ancestors. And one of the main signs of that is an elephant doesn't have a space between the lungs and the chest walls. The side of the lungs, the chest walls are the sides of the lungs, and that is regarded as an indication of their earlier aquatic ancestry. And they swim very, very well. Even the little ones, although they need some help from their parents or from their mothers. They swim, they use their trunk like a snorkel. So they are quite aquatic if they need to be, and quite comfortable in deep water. Also something I've had the privilege of seeing. Elephants swimming across the channels in Chobe National Parks. We got an interesting question from Catherine, asking if elephants scent marks. Catherine, to be honest, I guess it depends on an exact description of scent marking. But in the way that, say, some of the felines do or some of the antelopes do, generally not. Although elephants have quite a lingering and recognizable scent. And when male elephants are in must, or female elephants in estrus, that they do certainly have a lingering scent that is there for the purpose of attracting mates. They do drop their dung in certain spots, they urinate. All of that certainly leaves certain scent trails that can be quite easily followed should they wish to. And especially if they spend a bit of time in a spot, if they spend a bit of time around a watering hole, they often stand there, they drop their dung, they urinate, and that certainly does serve the purpose of telling other animals that they have been there. But scent marking in the sense of doing it to clearly demarcate territorial boundaries, they don't do that. They don't necessarily have territories. They've got home ranges, which is just a large area that they move over, that they share with a number of other herds. And you'll have the males battle it out for rights to mate with females in a certain area. Shaina is saying that you're learning a lot more about elephants today. Shaina, I really hope so. Even myself, I'm learning a lot more about elephants and everything every day. Even impala. Have a look, I haven't even noticed, oh there we go. But I haven't even noticed these impalas lifting their heads once. You can see they're out on the grass, on the green grass. Judging from that mud pool there at the back and the darker color of the soil, these grasses are probably quite nutritious and very welcome this time of the year. And just have a look. And this is what they do, impalas and other herbivores, is they eat as much as they can while they can. They hardly even chew, they just bite off. They swallow. And then when they get a chance to rest later on, that's when they'll regurgitate and chew the cud. And I saw we had an interesting question from George earlier, asking if all mammals have a 4-chambered heart. To my knowledge, yes, indeed they do, George. Indeed, all mammals do have a 4-chambered heart with 2 atria and 2 ventricles. All mammals, including the elephant. You can imagine there's quite a lot of difference between an elephant heart and a impala heart. Another interesting question from George is, how come there are more antelope in nature when they only have a 1-to-1 birth ratio, and provided predators give birth to more, sometimes 2 to 3 cubs at a time? That's an interesting question, George. In short, the lifestyles of predators is a little bit more harsh. Their survival rate is less, or they've got a higher mortality rate, hence they tend to have more little ones. The competition between predators is more fierce than it is between the herbivores. Impalas, for instance, they tend to form herds. They have large groups. There is enough food around for them and enough resources at certain times of the year, and they are therefore more. Where with predators, they will only hunt every couple of days, or have a meal. They don't have to have a full meal every day. They rely on other animals to get their energy, so they tend to be less, and therefore they have more a less likely chance of reaching adulthood, in which case they have a little bit more young. But while these impalas are enjoying this good last bit of green grass here, we're going to head back to Oldonyo and see. Maybe we have the elephants around there still. Aha. This is quite an interesting view, where we have a number of butterflies right near the water's edge here at Oldonyo. And if I'm not mistaken, some elephant feet as well. There we go. And that's why the butterflies are here. Those sprays of water coming through form little puddles. They keep the surrounding soil full of moisture, providing just enough moisture for these butterflies. There we go. Look at those large flat feet moving in the background. You can see, looking at it closely like this, you can see where these butterflies are sitting. It's a combination of mud and broken up elephant dung. A testament to all the animals that's moved past here, and also a show of how important an animal like an elephant can be. The butterflies won't land out on the straight puddles of water. It'll be too risky for them. They are very light and very likely would be able to sit on top of the top layer of the water without breaking the water surface, but it's just much safer to sit on the wet dung and wet material that hold moisture around the water. Well, the Lady Macbeth is giving a interesting resource. Some of our viewers would like to check it out. She's saying Elephant Voices is an excellent site that teaches about elephants. Indeed it is, Lady Macbeth. Very, very interesting information, and a site that I often use myself as well. Some good, reliable information there as well. And for those of you that would like to read up a little bit in your own time on elephant, it is a fascinating creature. Its biology is one thing, its social structure is another thing, and then of course its behavior is also another thing, and that's something we can watch here at Live at the Watering Hole. So have a look. What I always find interesting about watching butterflies sitting like this is, even though there might be only have the presence of the dominant 2 or 3 colors in a little group of butterflies, when they move about like that, they are incredibly colorful, and it looks like light blues, light greens, yellows and whites around here. I'm not exactly sure about all of the species, but I have noticed that we do tend to see a lot of butterflies around the watering holes, especially in the heat of the day. What's also quite interesting is it's a very, very beautiful contrast to see these very large, giant elephants moving around the water, and then this delicate little creature benefiting from their presence. It's amazing how these contrasts and relationships form out here in nature. Joey is asking, if elephants had a differently shaped foot, would they not be able to support their weight? Indeed, Joey, they've got a very interestingly shaped foot, and it's unique in its design. It's got a very like an absorbing heel, which is like a combination of fat and cartilage, that provides it with that roundy shape at the bottom, obviously covered in very, very thick, robust skin, but that's to cushion the weight of the animal, along with an extremely strong bone structure and muscles attached to it. But technically speaking, an elephant kind of walks on its toes. Funnily enough, if you had to view its foot through an x-ray, and then under the heel part of it, it's got this massive pocket of fat and cartilage, which provides it with its soft appearance. But that is indeed to distribute the weight of such a heavy animal. It also provides them with the very unique ability to move quietly and soundlessly, even through noisy environments, which I always find incredible about these animals. One of the downsides of it is an elephant can't jump. Mayesh is asking if this area only have these butterflies. Mayesh, I do not know. I'm sure they have a lot more types and colors of butterflies. Yeah, sorry, Mayesh's question was, do they have only these colors and no other colors of butterflies? Mayesh, they do have, I'm sure they have a wide variety of colors in this area. I think it depends on the specific habitat, the specific spot. I think around the watering hole generally we see the vagrants and the migrants. We see some of the butterflies that come in the whiter colors, like the formerly known as the brown-veined whites, which is now I think the caper whites. These butterflies tend to be more common around the open areas, especially around watering holes, but it depends on the time of the year. For the species that's available, butterflies do also move. Some of them migrate. Some of them tend to be associated with very specific habitat types, and they tend to not move too much out of that area. So it depends on the species, but I'm sure there's a lot more colors than just the colors we're seeing. I'm also sure if we had to get a very, very close up view of them, we'd probably notice that there's a lot more colors than we might see at a distance. And then Lawrence Dube was asking what the name of the dove was that flew away. Lawrence, from what I could see, I thought that it was a emerald spotted wood dove. One of the smaller, very beautiful little dove that walked around that puddle's edge. Also another frequent visitor to watering holes in the middle of the day. Catherine is saying beautiful butterflies. Indeed, Catherine, they are. Have a look. Now, this giraffe waiting for his turn here reminds me of a question that I saw earlier. From who was this question? But it was about elephants and whether they share their watering holes. But indeed, have a look at the one elephant's right in the middle of the water there. It almost looks like a standoff, but these elephants always have a conversation around the watering hole, and I think the other two's waiting to get in on that water inlet on the side. But doesn't look like they are gonna take quick to do so. So let's see if this giraffe musters up the courage to have a drink. And of course, for the giraffe, going down to have a drink, even if it's necessary, it's quite a lengthy process, and they need a bit of encouragement. Oh, it was Petroleros 23 asking earlier, do the elephants allow any other animals to visit the watering hole for a drink? At some points they do. Some points they'll actively deter other animals from drinking or keep them away. Depends on the elephant's state and mood. But sometimes they also just don't pay attention to the fact that the other animals want to come in for a drink. I mean, they're the largest animal out here, and generally the biggest animal has the right of way. And unfortunately, in some cases, that could
When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
We haven't seen Vuli for quite a long time. There's a lioness with 3-day-old cubs that is around here.
Isn't that beautiful?
Those little ones are so playful. Hey guys.
Can really see how big he is.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
He seems quite thirsty. Now I've often wondered, I don't know, but I've often wondered how much water baboons actually drink when they drink like that. Because it looks like they hardly touch their lips. So they probably just sip up a little bit at a time. And I'm wondering where the rest of this one's troop is. It's probably not too far from here, just watching. Also waiting for the elephants to make their way out of the area. But that's the thing with elephant pools, once they move into a watering hole they can be there for quite a while. And Double P is saying before, I think I'll hold on to that question for now. I just heard that the animals in the Mara have made their way down to the main crossing, so I think let's leave these animals for now. Looks like the giraffes finally mustered up the courage. Oh no, not quite. But let's head over to the main crossing in the Mara and let's go see if the animals are about to cross. Aha, and it is indeed an eland that is leading the way, it seems. Although hesitant, eland very nervous animals. From my experience, they do tend to favor open areas, and even though they're very large, they make a very good meal. For large predators, it's a big amount of effort and energy put into to take down an antelope like this, but it's a great reward at the same time. And the eland know that. But let's see, the zebra's at the back. Maybe once they're near the water's edge, the zebras might be the one that makes the final plunge. The eland's clearly found a good green bush to browse on there. I always find species of this family of antelope, the spiraled horned antelopes, to be nervous eaters. They often nibble on a few leaves if they are about to make a decision or a move. This would be incredible If we can get to see these animals cross in the last few minutes of this afternoon show, that would be a spectacular ending. There's a little dust devil going in the back. Can almost hear the Western music playing. The tense standoff between the river crossing and the animals. Animal Lover is saying this is a great place to have a camera. Indeed it is. He also said that you watched zebra cross the other day. And you watched some getting taken by crocs. That's pretty spectacular. Oof, now that we get a nice close view of these eland, I can see this one in front. Looks like a nice big bull eland with some amazing spirals on those horns. There we go. Oof, that's nice. It's a nice big bull. Crocodile would make a very good meal of that. But let's see. But before we left El Doño, and while we wait for these animals to make a move, I want to get back to Double P's question or comment. He was saying on Wild Earth they showed a whole mountain of butterflies moving. And it must have been hundreds of thousands, just like the Great Migration. Indeed, Double P, there are a lot of butterflies that do migrate. In Southern Africa and South Africa, we have a seasonal migration of butterflies that start from around the edge of the Karoo area, and they move generally in a northeasterly direction for days on end. They're mostly made up from the Caper whites, and they move all the way to the northeastern part of South Africa and into Mozambique. But yeah, it is an incredible sight. It's literally butterflies everywhere. It looks like white little flakes reflecting the sunlight. And there's other butterfly migrations that is amazing to watch. Now these animals are changing direction. Let's see, it might just be for the time being. Oh, you gotta remember, like if you had to make a plunge for life or death. Oof, there we go. Let's see. That's the right way. Go, eland. Take them, lead them. But you can imagine if you had to take a plunge for life or death, it's a pretty big decision. Especially if you've got a few hundred animals behind you that's hesitant. The other thing that I'm also thinking when these animals do this is the franticness and the fear that go along with these crossings are interesting, and to watch the effect it has on a large group of animals. And yes, there are some inherent dangers in flowing rivers and rocky, slippery rocks across it, but there's also the aspect of the predator. I wonder how much of this fear is due to the predator. Of course, there are predators waiting on the banks on some occasions, land-based predators. But then, of course, arguably the most commonly thought about predator when we think about these crossings are the crocodile. And I wonder what portion or proportion of this level of fear is associated with a croc. Shaina is saying you didn't know that Eland crossed over. Neither did I, Shaina. This is the first time I'm seeing Eland near a crossing like this. I would have loved, I hope they're not moving away. It seems like they might be changing their direction for a bit, but they might just be moving back to the spot where the others are. They've probably just come down to have a look, test the waters, so to say, and thought against it for now. It's very much a touch and go business, and it's not an easy decision, especially not if you're the leading group. And I can completely understand animals making such a move in this instance. Scottish Carol is saying hello to everybody at Final Control and Wild Earth, and is asking, will the first animal to cross be a sacrifice, or will they get a clear run as the crocs are not ready? That's a good question, Scottish. I think that is the big question on everybody's minds, and that is certainly part of the excitement, is to see what happens. Shaina is saying thank you to everybody at Live at the Watering Hole. Thank you for joining this afternoon, Shaina, and to all of our other viewers for that matter. George is saying thank you for all the answers. Well, George, I thank you for all your questions. I think I realize that I've got a lot of research to do, so thank you for them. I really do appreciate them, and I'm glad that you could learn something. That's interesting, especially once we zoom in, you see all that moving animals, and it certainly was worth it. Even though we might not have seen a crossing this afternoon, I'm sure we might have our luck one of these days. But I would like to say, from all of us here Live at the Watering Hole, thank you for your questions, thank you for joining us, and I hope you join us again tomorrow. And from all of us here, before I say goodbye completely, Double P is saying thank you, Wild Earth, for another good Live at the Watering Hole. Thank you to you too, Double P. And to everybody else, I'd like to say goodbye from all of us here at Live at the Watering Hole and Wild Earth.